Most people with an extremely high IQ don't feel intelligent. They feel exhausted, misunderstood, and strangely alone. And today, that's exactly what we need to talk about. For decades, we've been sold a simple story. High IQ means easier success, sharper instincts, and a life that just makes more sense. But modern psychology tells a very different story. Because for many people operating at the highest cognitive levels, the mind doesn't feel like an advantage. It feels like an engine that never fully shuts off. One that analyzes when you want to rest, questions when you want to trust, and feels everything at a volume most people never experience. Today, we're going to explore the real psychology behind extremely high intelligence, not the myth, but the actual inner architecture. What it looks like, what it costs, and why understanding it changes everything. Let's get into it. If you have an extremely high IQ, your brain almost certainly runs on what psychologists call a need for cognition, a deep, near-biological compulsion to analyze, examine, and mentally explore. For most people, thinking is a tool. You pick it up when you need it and put it down when you don't. But for the highly intelligent mind, thinking is a constant state of being. Lay down at night with nothing demanding your attention, and the mind doesn't rest. It replays earlier conversations, runs probability models on future outcomes, and starts asking philosophical questions at 2 a.m. This isn't anxiety. It's what neuroscientists describe as an overactive default mode network, the brain's background processor running at full power even during apparent stillness. Einstein called it thinking in pictures. He would mentally simulate entire physical scenarios for hours before touching a single equation. The gift, extraordinary depth of insight. The cost, the present moment, often feels like a distraction from whatever the mind is already working on. Highly intelligent people are exceptionally good at imagining outcomes, every possible consequence of a decision, every angle of a problem, every way something could go wrong or right. This sounds like a strength, and in focused environments, it is. But in ordinary life, it creates what psychologists call analysis paralysis. When you can genuinely see 50 outcomes, choosing one feels reckless. So the highly intelligent mind stalls, not from laziness, but from thoroughness. Research published in Psychological Science found that individuals with higher cognitive ability generate more solution pathways, but this very capacity delays action when the stakes feel uncertain. This is one of the most misunderstood traits of intelligent people. From the outside, it looks like indecision or procrastination. From the inside, it feels like responsibility. In the 1960s, Polish psychologist Kazimierz Dabrowski noticed something strange in his research with gifted individuals. They didn't just think more intensely, they experienced everything more intensely. He identified what he called overexcitabilities, a heightened sensitivity of the nervous system across 5 dimensions: intellectual, emotional, imaginational, sensory, and psychomotor. In plain terms, their internal volume dial is turned up. Sounds are louder. Emotions run deeper. Injustice feels physically uncomfortable. Beauty can be genuinely overwhelming. This is why many highly intelligent people struggle in overstimulating environments. The fluorescent office lighting, the background noise of a crowded room, the small talk that feels like static over a signal they're desperately searching for. It's not sensitivity as weakness. It's a nervous system calibrated for high-resolution input, which is a profound asset in the right environment and completely exhausting in the wrong one. Here's one that rarely gets named directly, and it might be the most quietly painful. Psychologists have long observed that meaningful communication becomes genuinely difficult when there is a significant gap in cognitive processing styles between 2 people. This doesn't mean highly intelligent people are better conversationalists. It often means the opposite. They crave conversations that move toward complexity, psychology, philosophy, the hidden mechanics behind human behavior, but most social environments are built around something different: small talk, surface narratives. Group comfort. So many high IQ individuals learn to mask. They simplify their language, soften their ideas, and hold back the thoughts that might seem too intense or too unusual for the room. Over time, this creates a strange kind of loneliness, not from being alone, but from consistently feeling like no one is quite meeting them where their mind actually lives. If any of this is already landing somewhere personal, you're in the right place. This channel exists for exactly this kind of conversation, psychology, that actually explains the experience of being human, not just the surface of it. Subscribe now so you don't miss what's coming next in this video and every week. There's a specific form of emotional heaviness that disproportionately affects highly intelligent minds. Psychiatrist Silvano Arietti, writing about creative and intellectually gifted individuals, identified what is sometimes called existential depression. Not depression triggered by personal loss, but by philosophical confrontation with unavoidable truths, the scale of the universe, the fragility of civilization, the gap between what humanity is capable of and what it actually chooses. Highly intelligent people tend to encounter these questions earlier, and they tend to sit with them longer. The routine of daily life, the commute, the small obligations, the social scripts, can begin to feel structurally disconnected from those deeper questions. Not because life is bad, but because the mind keeps asking what all of it is for. This isn't pessimism. In many cases, it becomes the engine of remarkable creative and intellectual contribution. But it requires being named for what it is, not weakness, not dysfunction, but the specific burden of a mind that cannot comfortably look away from hard things. One underexplored reason why extremely intelligent people often underperform or suffer quietly in high-performing careers is perfectionism. Not the productive kind, the kind rooted in an exceptionally clear vision of what perfect would look like. Because the highly intelligent mind can genuinely imagine the ideal version of almost anything it attempts, the gap between that vision and real-world outcomes is always visible. What others experience as a success, the high IQ mind experiences as an approximation of something better. Over time, this creates what researchers call gifted burnout, the specific exhaustion of someone who has been quietly measuring themselves against an internal standard no one else can even see. The result is that the same intelligence that enables extraordinary vision also makes it harder to feel genuinely satisfied by real-world achievement. The standard keeps moving, and the pursuit of it rarely feels like enough. This one you may recognize. The Dunning-Kruger effect, established by psychologists David Dunning and Justin Kruger at Cornell, showed that low-knowledge individuals consistently overestimate their competence, while those with genuine expertise tend to underestimate it. The more you actually know, the more aware you become of everything you don't. For highly intelligent people, this creates a persistent undercurrent of self-doubt that has nothing to do with actual ability. They're not second-guessing themselves because they're incompetent. They're second-guessing themselves because they can see the full complexity of what genuinely knowing something would require. In a room full of confident, half-informed voices, the most knowledgeable person often says the least. Not from insecurity, but from intellectual honesty. That silence is frequently mistaken for uncertainty. It's almost always the opposite. So here's what all of this adds up to. Extremely high intelligence is not the simple advantage we were taught to believe it was. It is a specific way of existing in the world, one that comes with genuine gifts and genuine costs that rarely get acknowledged in the same breath. The internal motor that generates insight also refuses to rest. The emotional depth that enables empathy also amplifies pain. The awareness that allows someone to see through systems and illusions also removes the comfort of easy answers. But here's what changes everything: when highly intelligent people find environments, and people, where the full version of how they think is not something to be managed or hidden, but something genuinely met and engaged with, that same mind becomes what it was always meant to be. Not a burden, an instrument. If this resonated with you, I want to ask you something specific in the comments. Which of these signs felt most like being described rather than explained? Your answer tells you more than you might expect. This is Human Thinking Lab, where we explore the deeper architecture of the human mind every week. Subscribe if you want to keep going deeper.